Hello everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Amanda Ostrander. I'm a teacher turned homeschool mom, and this is Raising A to Z, a place where we talk all about homeschooling. And today we're going to talk about finding the balance between being a homeschooling parent and teacher and just being a parent. Has this happened to you? 1 minute you're helping with math, and then the next minute you're reminding them again to put away their shoes, to pick up their laundry, to put away their dishes, and they're mad because, they're in the middle of math, but also you're overwhelmed by everything that's happening around you. And now you're both mom and teacher, and it's a struggle to figure out, where does mom stop and where does teacher begin? Have you been there yet? Because you'll get there. Everyone does. Everyone gets there at some point where you're having a moment where you're like, am I the teacher? Am I the mom? Am I supposed to be somewhere in the middle? Who am I in this situation? What hat do I need to put on my head? And that can be a really difficult balance to find when you are homeschooling. So we're going to talk about that today. As we go into this mini series, this is the second video in our mini series on finding balance. Last week I did finding balance in family life. Today we're going to find balance between being a parent and a teacher. And as we get into this, it is just important to remember that this is a learning process for everyone. Sometimes I'm going to give you permission that sometimes those hats blur, and it can be a real struggle. It can be a really difficult place to find balance, especially because in our society today, so many parents have the very easy cutoff of just being the parent, right? You'll see, and you'll hear the same discussion if they coach their kids' sports or kids' activities, that sometimes they find that's a blurred thing. But again, that's a specific activity, right? When I do choir directing, I direct our kids choir at church. When I'm directing kids choir, it's a 1 hour block where I'm in charge of all these kids, and we're singing and we're dancing, we're doing all these things. And then when we leave, I'm very clearly mom again. There's a lot of distinction, especially since it's an out of the house thing. But when you are doing life and family time and schooling in the same space, as in in the same house, those things blur together a lot. And that can be a real struggle for a lot of people, finding that balance between being the mom and the teacher. And that can be a struggle. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It can be a real hard thing for a lot of people. Straight up. It's not easy. Being the parent and the teacher can be a blessing. Straight up. You get to know your kids' interests, what they like, what they don't like, how they learn. You get to customize what they're learning directly to them. We do a lot of animal unit studies because that's what my kids love. We do a lot of writing stuff because that's what my kids love. We do a lot of novel studies because my kids just eat up a novel study. And I pick novel studies that I think my kids are going to love. Because why wouldn't I? I have 2 kids. I can cater what books we read to them, right? I'll pick different genres. I'll pick histories or mystery or, fairy tale or what. There'll be different themes and ideas and elements, fantasy or whatever. But why would I pick a book about hockey if my kids don't like hockey? Right? It's not a thing that interests them at all. So why would I pick a book about that? So it's really nice that we can use our knowledge of our children and, knowledge of them personally and their personalities to direct and customize their learning. That is a wonderful thing. You also have the wonderful benefit of knowing what their home life is as well as their school life. When I was teaching, the number of times I'd see a kid come in and they were cranky and snappy and miserable all day long. And then at pickup, when you're bringing it up to mom or dad and you're like, hey, they were kind of miserable today. And they're like, oh yeah, we were at a hockey tournament all weekend. We got in at 2:30 this morning. So he's running on 4 hours of sleep. That would have been nice to know as a teacher. As a parent who's homeschooling my kids, if we had something like that come up, where we were traveling and we didn't get home till 2 a.m, I can let them sleep in. We can skip school that day. I can adjust. Maybe our school's going to be a movie or a documentary that day. I can adjust to my family's home life to make the schooling be the most successful that it can be right off the bat. Like, I'm not waiting to get more information. I know it. I was there. You know, like, oh, this one didn't eat breakfast. That's why she's cranky. Give her a snack. Like, I know these things. I was there. And so, like, that can be a huge blessing. And you know, rightfully so, we should play into that. As homeschooling parents, let's lean into that. So if you're struggling to find the balance between being a teacher and the parent, let's go over some of the most common areas where we find this and come up with some strategies that might be helpful. The first one, I think, is one where most parents struggle. It's discipline. How do I discipline my kid, and when do I discipline my kid for things that are happening? And I say this, like, when does not doing your schoolwork move from being like a teacher problem to a parenting problem? Right? Like, that's like a huge conflict that I find a lot of parents struggle with. Like, when does not doing your, like, you know, just making a mess in your copy work become a difficulty issue versus like a parenting issue? Move from become a teacher issue or a parenting issue, or is it both? Like, how do you handle that? First off, it's tricky. Like, let me tell you, as a teacher, sometimes that's just a tricky one to begin with. Like, it is not the easiest situation. But as a parent, you obviously do have a little bit more flexibility because they're your own kid and you can make decisions the way you want to make decisions. I think the first thing to do when you're having like struggles when it comes to schoolwork is to identify, is this a behavioral issue about the schoolwork, or is it a behavioral issue about like life? So for example, are we acting up about the math because we don't understand the math problem and we're frustrated? Or are we acting up because we're in a bad mood and we're not getting what we want? And so that's what we're mad about. Those are two separate issues. So kind of taking a step back and figuring out what is the core of this issue is the first thing. So sometimes that means, that's the first step. Are we mad and frustrated at the work? Or are we mad and frustrated at something else? And adjusting and making decisions based on that. So if your kid is mad and frustrated about the math because they genuinely don't understand and they're angry about it, okay, now it's time to put the teacher hat on and be like, we're going to take a step back. We're going to, reread the question. We're going to maybe go back and do like some more practice questions with help. Then we'll find a video on how, like, a different way of explaining this. And then we're going to come back and we're going to try it again together and see if we can figure it out. Okay. Like, that's more teacher mode. If we're acting up because they're mad that they didn't get to play video games, okay, that's a parenting issue. And they're going to take it out on their mat. If they're mad that they didn't get to play, they had to turn off their video games to do something and they're angry about that. Okay, that's a parenting issue because, that's not directly to do with schoolwork. And like, that's time to like put the schoolwork aside, take a step over here and have a different conversation. And so finding out what the root cause of an issue when you're a homeschooling parent is, I think, a little bit more, first off, we should do that as parents in general. But when you're trying to wear two hats, it's very, very important to find out what the root cause is. The other thing that I think is really important that not enough parents do is consistency when they're having struggles with school or discipline around academics. So being very consistent about what the expectations are and how we're going to get through them. So for example, my little Zoe is very slow when it comes to doing her schoolwork. Not because she can't do it, it's because she just loves to lollygag. It is what it is. So we've implemented a little timer, and I put that on for her for different subjects that she tends to be a little bit slower for, and consistently, because she can see the timer, that works better for her. And then she gets check marks. We've implemented a reward system that if at the end of the week she has gotten all of her check marks, she gets to pick a little chocolate to have with her chips on movie night. Or she gets to pick the movie or something like that, right? It's like giving her a little reward for doing something in a timely manner, which is something she struggles with, but it's a consistent thing. So we're that is an everyday thing that we're using this check mark. We're using the timer. We're using these things on a consistent basis, and it is working. It didn't take very long, but it did take being consistent. And I think And like, that wasn't a harsh thing. Like, if you do it in 7 minutes to write your sentence, amazing. Like, that's a long time. You got 7 minutes, you can do it. If you can't do it in 7 minutes, then you don't get your check mark for today. And if you're wondering, it was originally taking 45 minutes. So, and I was not happy. People say, oh, you were so patient. I was not patient. But yeah, finding ways to have certain consistency and having like legitimate consequences sometimes is important. But the other struggle that you want to make sure is that you're not turning every schoolwork time into a character battle, right? Like, just because you don't want to turn a struggle that is an academic struggle, like difficulty with the math problem, or having like, especially like if there are some struggles of like difficulties with reading or struggles with writing, or like numbers are not making sense. If you're finding like there's these kinds of frustrations, we're not turning those into character battles of like, well, you need to be more persistent and you need to have a good attitude and that's not the time. We need to like let go that sometimes things are hard. Sometimes they are very difficult. Kids can have big feelings about them, and we just work on progress. If they want to cry and do their math because that's just the outlet that they have and they're going to have tears, that's like, they're frustrated. We're not going to punish them for crying while they're doing their math. Like, that's not, if they're, working hard and trying to get something done and they're genuinely trying, I'm not going to worry about character battles, especially if it's been a struggle. So like, don't let a character battle be the end all and be all of your homeschooling. It's not worth it. The other thing that can happen is, because you are their parent and their teacher, sometimes you lose sight of them being kids. There can be very much a struggle with, and I say this like as a person who is taught and has been in the public school system, that sometimes, and like, it's not through any fault of their own, but teachers, I find, sometimes lose sight of the fact that kids are kids, and not in the way that we think, like, because they're not their kids. So like, I remember when I was teaching, like, I had a parent who's like, well, you're like not very like loving, and like, you're not very like you're not hugging my kid all the time. I think she needs more hugs. And I was like, she's in 2nd grade. I'm not really allowed to hug them. Like, there are things that like, and because you have to have like a little bit of distance, and like, you build relationship with kids, and there's kids that you like, but they're not your kid. Like, I'm not going to hug your 2nd grader. That would be weird to do that multiple times a day as a teacher. I'm not going to come over and like tickle them when they're, having a rough time. Like that would be really inappropriate, right? And so because teachers have a level of professionalism, and because there's also like a lot of expectations on teachers to get kids to grade level, get kids to this, they're always looking for like hitting check marks. And because you're a parent and you're homeschooling, it's not necessarily your focus, right? Like, you're wanting your kids to progress and do better and learn new things. But like, if it takes a little longer, that's fine, because you're not on the school's list of having to know all these things before state testing or whatever, right? So there is that to think about. When you're homeschooling your kids, you want to remember that the number one thing is to have a good relationship with your kids. You don't want to overcorrect. Like, if your kids are like, their writing's messy, you're not going to sit there and be like, okay, draw that A better. Okay, now the C. Okay, now the T. Like, you're not going to be like, you can't overcorrect them constantly. You are going to correct the big things. And sometimes that means letting little things slide. Okay? And maybe you let it slide today and you pick it up tomorrow. It's picking your battles, knowing what you're going to do, because the kids don't want to be corrected 100 times. They don't want to be corrected 45 times while you're doing their writing work, and they don't want to be corrected 45 more times when they're doing chores later. Some days you got to pick your battles of like, where's the focus going to be on a correction and like learning something new and a new skill today. You want to make sure that you're encouraging your kids, that you're high-fiving them. I like to say like, you can do hard things, having little phrases that I like with my kids that are encouraging, things like, you can do hard things. That was a big struggle, but you did it. I'm really liked how you figure that out, or how you like worked through that difficult problem. I liked your problem solving here. That was very creative. Like having little things to like encourage them throughout the day when they're doing their schoolwork is important. Acknowledging the wins as much as we're acknowledging, if not more, the little discipline notes, right? And the other thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is that you're doing things with your kids outside of school time. Whether that is, playing cards, or, having a family movie night, or, for us, like in the winter, Mario Kart nights. Man, oh man, we love a good round of Mario Kart. Like finding ways to connect with your kids that are not academic and that are not chores or personal life related, like that are just a way to connect and have fun with them is super important as well. The last area where I find a lot of parents struggle with finding balance being a parent and a teacher is when it comes to academics. There's often a push with parents because I think we feel the pressure. And because we feel the pressure, we put it on our kids, is the pressure to do it all and cover it all, right? I talked about this in the video that I did last week about finding balance with your family. Is like no one's doing it all. No teacher is teaching 9 subjects a day. Nobody is covering all of these subjects in 1 year. Like everybody is doing things differently and nobody's doing it all. Like maybe they cover. So we need to make sure that we're not taking the pressure that we're feeling because we've stepped out of the system. We need to make sure that we're not taking that and putting it on our kids. We don't want our kids to feel like we're pushing it too hard and too fast and that they like can't keep up. That's not the point of homeschooling. Our whole goal with homeschooling is to customize it to them, which means going at their pace, going at their level, and, working around what makes them tick. And pushing them too hard and too fast is just going to make them A, hate school. And then B, you're going to be stressed because they're not going to like school and they're going to be mad about it all the time. And then C, you're going to have fighting. And then D, everyone's going to just be losing it all the time. So let's not put our pressure on our kids. So number one, I always say progress is the goal. If we are moving forward, I am happy. If we have learned a new letter sound, we're great. If we're, only made 5 mistakes compared to the 10 that we made yesterday, amazing. Moving forward, progress, and doing things well over doing them quickly is always the goal, right? Make sure that you adapt things to fit your kids so that, if they're very visual kids, that you're using items and things for them to look at and count. Maybe that you need to have like manipulatives, like math. For us, it's dried pasta in different shapes. Works wonders. And the other thing that we need to accept as parents is pressure from other people doesn't mean that it needs to be on our kids. And that this is like one of the hardest things is that there are going to be gaps. No one learns everything in life, right? Like I don't know anything about cars and I have survived just fine about that. With that information. I can put gas in my car. I can check the oil if I need to. Not that I ever do. I just wait for the little light to show. But like, I can survive. I can drive my car, but I don't know anything about carburetors or exhausts or whatever. Like, I don't know anything about them. If something breaks, I don't know. We joke around that I can't even identify vehicles around me. My friends were like, we passed you on the way to class today. And I was like, oh, I didn't even see you. They're like, we know you. I'm like, we waved at you and you were like, I didn't recognize the car. You're driving home the other day. My husband was in his car driving towards us as we were like heading to a class. And the kids were like, there's dad. And I was like, where? They're like, the car that sits in our driveway every day. There are things that are going to just pass us by. There are going to be gaps in our lives of knowledge. That's okay. The goal is to not cover everything. The goal is to create kids who love learning and are willing to learn for the rest of their lives and be happy to learn and want to learn. That's the goal of homeschooling. I want to build kids who love learning and will, if they have a question, know how to find it, the answer, know where to go, are excited to go and learn something. That's the goal. Let's do a couple quick practical tips that you can implement right now that will help you bring some balance to being a teacher and a parent at the same time. Number one, set clear expectations. I think this is like the one thing teachers do really well is a lot of the times you'll see when you walk into a classroom in a lesson, there'll be an actual like, this is what we're doing on the board behind them. This is what the goal is. And that is phenomenal as a parent. Say, this is what we're doing today in school. We're doing this math lesson. We're going to learn this skill in language, and we're going to do this in science. Boom. When those are done, we can move on. Clear expectations of what we're doing and when we're done. Got it? Clear expectations. Some people like to have like school hours. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm more of a habit training person, whereas like the kids get used to the routine of after breakfast, we read a book and then we do school. Like, so it doesn't matter if it starts at 9 or 9:30. Like, that's just, we're not on a schedule, but like that it's kind of like this is the norm for us. But having things like visual schedules, setting the expectations, using timers, huge help. Sometimes having a transition thing can be really helpful too. So for us, it has become when we get in, we grab our book and when we read a novel, like that's become a cue. So sometimes people use a phrase like, okay, time for school. Sure. Sometimes it's an activity like, oh, we're going to like sit down and do this reading, or we're going to play this game or something like that. That can be really helpful too. Making sure that we are, and I talked about this earlier, number 3 is that we're separating out school corrections and behavior corrections. School corrections, we're just going to like look at them and address them differently than we are behavioral corrections, right? Like, we're not going to punish kids with more school, like kids who act up don't get more schoolwork. Let me tell you, that does not work. And kids who act up in school, we're not going to be taking away, like they're not getting grounded because they were struggling with their math question because they honestly didn't understand it. Let's make sure that our disciplines are appropriate and that we're making them balance, fit the crime and fit the situation. You know what I mean? And then we're going to give ourselves some grace as parents so that we have some adjusting to do that sometimes we're not going to get right. And that's okay. The goal is not to be perfect. It's just to always be doing the best that we can. And the last thing is to know when to take a break. Taking a break is the underrated thing in the world. Having a break, being able to say like, hey, we're stopping this for now. The math is too frustrating and we're all in tears. We're done for today. Oh, we're mad about, that's okay. We can take a break. We can, if there's a situation with our kids and we're all angry, we as a parent can take a break. Breaks are underrated, but they are so phenomenal. Take a break, have a snack, regroup, try again. Okay? So I hope this video has given you guys some ideas on how to balance being a teacher and a parent at the same time. If you guys have ever struggled wearing both hats, please leave me a comment down below and give me some tips that work for you. I'd love to share them with our audience. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed and click the bell to get notifications. Make sure you follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm always answering questions over there. Why don't you consider becoming a member? Because then you get bonus videos, coupon codes, early releases to videos, all kinds of stuff just for becoming a member. So you'll find that over there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.